Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and today I'm back to do my August wrap up. We're already into the really shit light season, so please excuse the really terrible lighting. I think I'm really going to struggle in winter with lighting because my house is quite dark, especially in the morning, which is when I normally film. So yeah, when we get into winter, it's gonna be interesting. So yeah, bear with. I'm going to try and sort out some sort of better lighting setup. Anyway, in August I finished 9 books and I also DNF'd one book. It's not been the best reading month. I kind of talked about this in a vlog that I put up last week. I've just really been struggling to concentrate on reading in August. The Olympics was on for the first sort of like 2 weeks of the month, and yeah, I just like spent so much time watching it. I really enjoy the Olympics, so like no regrets. I think because I was spending so much time watching it, I wasn't then like I was still reading, but I wasn't spending as much time reading. I didn't feel as invested in some of the books. I was trying to pick shorter books because I knew that I wasn't going to have much time to read, which I don't know if that's always a good plan because I feel frustrated if I start reading a really big book and then I'm just like not making any progress with it. But at the same time, like I was not that invested in a lot of the shorter things I read, and I don't think that that's always the book's fault. I think it was just the sort of headspace I was in. Um, Having said that, I didn't have a bad read all month. Like I didn't find anything that I absolutely fell in love with, but I also have good things to say about all of these books. So in previous months, I've sort of ranked my books from like worst to best. I'm not really going to do that this month because I like have no idea where I would start with that. I feel kind of similarly about all of the books, which is a bit weird, but still some really great books. Like maybe in a different month, I could have like really fallen in love with. So I'm just going to go in the order that I have them sitting here. So the first one I have is Winter by Ali Smith. This is a library copy. I had read Autumn by Ali Smith when it first came out, I think in like 2018, and this one also came out in 2018, and I just never really got to it. What's nice about our seasonal quartet is that they don't like follow on from each other. They sort of have similar themes, but the characters are all different. I don't know if that's the same for all of them. I think maybe some characters start to recur, like in spring and summer. I would say that I preferred Winter to Autumn. I really like some elements of Ali Smith's writing. In this book, we're first introduced to Sophia, who's sort of like a grumpy old woman, and she has some sort of thing in her eye where she like thinks that there's a child there, and she's speaking to this sort of like ghost child. It's Christmas Eve, and I guess it's sort of like a play on Christmas Carol because she starts like revisiting Christmases past. And then we jump to her son Art, who was meant to be visiting his mum for Christmas with his girlfriend, but he's split up with his girlfriend and he's trying to find someone to replace her. So he's like walking past a bus stop and he sees this girl sitting there and he invites her to his mum's house for Christmas, and then his mum's sister also shows up. So his mum and his sister don't have a very good relationship, so it's a very interesting setup for a story, and it definitely makes for like a lot of good drama because you've got these four people who like he doesn't really get on with his mum that well. He doesn't know this girl, she's meant to be pretending to be his girlfriend. It's like very dramatic. I really liked some of the things that Ali Smith was doing with the plot, but I find that her political commentary is a bit too on the nose for me. There are conversations that they're having about like this is at the time of Brexit, about refugees and immigrants, and the girl whose name is Lux that he sort of meets at the bus stop is European. I think you do find out what country she's from, but not till a lot later in the book. And you know she's very progressive. Art's a bit older. He's frustratingly conservative. Like some of his views are a bit crazy. I don't really know what age he's meant to be, but like his views seem odd. And his mum's views are very conservative. So there are these sort of conversations about immigrants at the border and whose life's worth living, and it felt quite those sort of bits. I found a bit like not they weren't very subtle, but I did really like a lot of her other commentary. Ali Smith is doing a lot with words. Like if there's a lot of intertextuality here. As I say, she's talking about Christmas Carol, but I'm sure there are lots of references to lots of other books in this. I don't always pick up on these things, but she's definitely a very smart writer, and she's always playing with words, playing with language. So if you really like that sort of thing, I would recommend picking this up. I think I would still pick up Spring and Summer, and they are very fast reads, and there's something about, like, they're always still interesting, even if they're not like 100% for me. So yeah, I would recommend this one. The other library book I read is the Radetzky March by Joseph Roth. This is a sort of like Austrian classic from the early 20th century. Yeah, it was written in 1932, so sort of like an Austrian modern classic about the decline and fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, essentially. I really liked the first half of this book, and then it started to get a little bit heavy. It was quite obvious where it was going, so you basically follow 2/3 generations of men in this family, where the grandfather had taken a bullet for the emperor in a battle, and then he was made a baron. And before that, his family were quite poor. And mainly the book is about his son and his grandson, and we follow the legacy of this battle. Their destinies are very much linked with the Austrian emperor. They sort of have this idea of like what their father and grandfather did, and how it was like such a great act, and they're trying to grapple with this, I guess. The grandson goes into the army, and World War One is approaching. Like, that is very clear throughout the book. He keeps talking about what is to come type thing, and like the destruction. And so yeah, like towards the end of the book, you are ramping up towards World War One, and you get to a certain point where it's like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. But I think if you knew a lot about this time period, it would be really interesting. I don't know much about the decline and fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but I did still really enjoy the ideas in this. I think you would get a lot more out of it if you like had a really good idea of the Austro-Hungarian identity, because that's kind of what this is about. The grandson gets billeted into different areas, so at points he's like in Slovenia, on the Lithuanian border type thing, and you sort of see the national identities change. But like for me, I don't really know that much about that. But yeah, I would recommend this one if you're looking for a sort of shorter classic. It's about 300 pages, and I did fly through it. I would recommend it. I thought it was going to be a bit too war heavy for me, but you don't really touch on the war. It's more just about these two men's lives. So yeah, I would recommend it. Next, I read Justine by Lawrence Durrell. This is another one where I really liked aspects of it, but I didn't fully fall in love with it overall. So this is about a sort of poor teacher who, it says he's Irish in this. I don't remember him being Irish specifically, but yeah, he's like an Irish teacher living in Alexandria pre-World War II, and he sort of falls in love with this woman called Justine, and it's about their relationship, but it's also about their friends. And Justine's married. It's about her husband, like her relationship with her husband. In the main character in this also has a girlfriend. You sort of touch on that. This book is very fever dreamy. You don't get things in linear order, and while I don't need that, I was getting a little bit confused, or not even confused, but you sort of get a little bit of when he meets Justine and when he meets his girlfriend, but not in the right order. You find out at the start that his girlfriend has died, but again, you don't really ever get the climax of her dying. But what you do get is a lot of sort of musings on love and the sort of feeling of being in Alexandria at this time period. It's definitely a very atmospheric and setting focused book, so it's really interesting from that point of view. This is the first book in a quartet, and I think that the other three follow different characters from this book. So the next one is called Balthazar, who we do meet in the book, and then there's Mount Olive, I don't remember if we meet them, and then Clea, who we meet. So like I can sort of see where this is going. I think each one of these books is about a different love affair. But while I appreciate flowery language about love, like I do need to understand sort of like the actual story of the relationship. And at one point in this he says like, oh, there's, you know, it would be pointless me trying to tell things in order. I need to talk about what feels the most poignant to me. It's like, okay. If you liked at Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept. I just like books that are about like just being in love without you needing to know too much details, and I think you would really like this. The writing was incredibly beautiful. I did tab a lot of lines, so I did like it from that point of view, but yeah, it was just a bit like didn't 100% work for me. Then I read So Long a Letter by Mariama Ba. Mariama Ba is a Senegalese author, and this is basically a long letter that she's writing to her friend, and it goes through her life working as, I think she's a teacher in Senegal, and about her marriage to her husband. Her husband then takes a second wife, and it's how she deals with this. This same thing had basically happened to her friend, and they both have very different reactions to this news. One of them just continues on with their life and accepts the second wife, and the other one is like, nope, not having this, and leaves. So it was really interesting to see sort of the Senegalese attitude towards women and women's place in Senegalese society, and also these two women's like different perspectives. Essentially you never hear back from her friend, it's just her writing the letter, and it was very powerful. Like the men in this book are really terrible but you also really see the strength that she has from her relationship with her children, and like she's a very, very strong woman in it, but she's also frustrated at the things that are going on. So yeah, I think this was really, really good. I think like for me, just one long letter is not really going to be enough to really get into any like depth of the story. I really liked her voice, and I did like the letter, but yeah, it wasn't really like a fully fleshed out story. You're just getting snippets from her life. So I would recommend this one as well. Definitely if you're looking for more African books, I would recommend this. Does sort of delve into Senegalese society a lot. And then I read Arlington Park by Rachel Cusk. This is my third Rachel Cusk now. I read In the Fold back in May, not sure. And I read Second Place last year. Arlington Park, I don't know where it sits in my order of preference. This is an earlier book, so this one was written in 2006, and you can tell like that's not a bad thing, but I just think basically this book follows different women that live in this sort of suburban estate called Arlington Park. They were all quite well off, and it sort of follows some of them are like bored housewives, some of them are like working mums, and their relationship with their husbands, and basically you're getting like essentially the same woman, like it's a different woman, but they're all the same type of woman's perspective in different chapters. You do go back to some women, but yeah, a lot of the chapters then follow different women. And yeah, I think that this shows that this was 2006. This feels very like, I don't know, just like the things they're talking about, it feels kind of like Desperate Housewives, like Bridget Jones' Diary, that type of woman, where they're like all aspiring to be thin and blonde and pretty. I did really like it. Like I thought it was really good, but towards the end I was just like, I can kind of see what she's trying to do. And she, again, it was a little bit heavy-handed, so the like last chapter is this dinner party scene, and like it always was very dramatic. I really enjoyed the reading process of this because it was quite fun, because like each chapter you're getting some like new sort of drama with the person's husband, just like finding out about their lives. I did really like that element of it, but yeah, just like hearing the same sort of perspective over and over again. It's just like quite obvious what Rachel Cusk was trying to do. I don't think it was anything particularly innovative, but yeah, like this was a fun read. Like I enjoyed my time with it. But yeah, I don't know how well it's aged compared to some of her other work, but I would still recommend if you do like Rachel Cusk. Then throughout the month I read Garden Stories. This is a collection of short stories edited by Diana Secker Tesdell. I picked this up in summer because I thought like oh, the gardens are all nice and I can walk around and look at flowers and then go home and read about them type thing, which kind of worked. You know, it's an anthology of short stories. You're always going to get some you like more than others, but there were a lot that I did really like, and then towards the end less so. I think that was the way the categories were split up. So at the start you sort of get all of the beautiful descriptions of gardens, and then towards the end you're into like weirder stories about gardens. So that was just like not particularly what I was looking for, but obviously it's good that there's a huge like variety of stories. There's some really famous authors in this, so let me tell you some of the stories that I really liked. Jamaica Kincaid has a story called The Garden I Have in Mind. Doris Lessing had one called Flavours of Exile. There was an excerpt from Walden by Henry David Thoreau, which was nice. Virginia Woolf's Kew Gardens I really liked, and I'd never read The Garden Party by Catherine Mansfield, and I really liked it. I liked the section from My Antonia by Willa Cather. I liked Blue Poppies by Jane Gardam. There's a bit from The Secret Garden, which was nice. There was also a bit from Rebecca. And I liked A Night in the Garden by Mir Shalev. So yeah, there were stories by Italo Calvino, J.G. Ballard, Nathaniel Hawthorne, D.H. Lawrence. Like, there were a lot of big names in this, and so like I guess the thing is, because they're like, it's probably a lot of the authors is not their best work, because it's just like a story about gardens. So like, for example, the Italo Calvino story, like I don't think it's really his best work. They just picked it because it's about gardens. So I guess you're always going to get that in a really specific short story collection. But I enjoyed my time with this. There are a lot of other books in this series, so there's a list at the back, but there are some that I like would be interested in picking up, but I guess I'm probably going to have the same experience where, like, for example, they have like Paris stories where I'm like, oh, that's great, like loads of nice stories in Paris, but you're obviously still going to get such a range of stories that you like and don't like. There's dog stories, there's ghost stories, horse stories, Rome stories, fishing stories, Florence stories, stories of art and artists sounds quite interesting, stories from the kitchen, stories of the sea, Venice stories. So yeah, like quite a lot of interesting options in this series, so I definitely would be interested in picking another one up in future and seeing how I got on. Then I read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Everyone's been reading this and a lot of people have really loved it. I liked it. I didn't like completely fall in love with it. I do like Dostoevsky's work. I've read 2 of his longer books. I've read Crime and Punishment, which I liked, and The Idiot, which I loved. So I have the Karamazov brothers on my TBR, so I'll be getting to it soon. I like the second story in this more than the first one. So the first one is called White Nights, and it's about this man who's basically got no friends, and he's walking about the city and he sees this woman, and it's sort of like love at first sight, but she's waiting for another man. So yeah, it's sort of like unrequited love story. Which I think it makes sense for a lot of Dostoevsky's writing. Like that's kind of what he does. There's quite often a like love element to his books, but tends not to go particularly well. I struggle to get invested in a character that just falls in love with some random girl he sees standing by the river at first sight, and I know that reflects more on him as a character and that he feels like he's got no connections, but like I'm not going to get invested in that relationship because that's a crazy thing to do. So yeah, like I liked the writing in White Nights, but I wasn't like hugely invested in their love story. The second story I liked though, it was called Wobok, and it was about a man that goes to a graveyard and he's sort of like hearing all of the conversations that the dead are having with each other. I thought that was really cool and creepy. It kind of reminded me of Pedro Paramo by Juan Rulfo, where the dead are all speaking to each other. Yeah, I really liked it. So I would recommend picking this one up. It's only like £3 and I did enjoy both of the stories in the collection. But yeah, I didn't like fall in love with White Nights the way that some people have. I kind of had a feeling that might be the case going into it because I don't like really love those sort of love stories. But then the last one I read was Prairie Dresses Art Other by Danielle Dutton. I picked this up because I'd heard a couple of people speaking about it. I'd heard Katie James speaking about it and she said she really enjoyed it, and then I heard Dakota Warren speaking about it saying it was really weird, and it was really weird and I really liked it. I think if I picked this up at another time, like I would have really loved this. So you get some short stories at the start of this, and they're all kind of almost like eco-horror-y type thing, like weird things are going on. They're like, it's all about plants and flowers and the prairie. Really like that. You then get a section where she's taken basically like 60 or 70 excerpts from books that are describing dresses, and she's like she like numbered them and put them all in. But then at the back of that section, there's like, it tells you what book they're from. So I was like reading them, trying to see if I knew any of them, which I like didn't. I'd read a lot of the books, but I'm not good with like descriptions of dresses, it turns out. Because yeah, there were like dresses that are described in Jane Eyre, Lolita, Sargasso Sea. Like yeah, there are a lot of like famous books in there. So that was a really like interesting section. And then she starts to talk about art and how she uses art as an inspiration for her stories, and the process of ekphrasis, which I never really heard that word before, but it's basically taking a piece of art or just anything and making art out of it. I guess people could call that plagiarism or copying, but she really sees that as like a thing in itself, and I really appreciated that. So I like that, and then there were some more sort of short stories and essays at the end. So this was like a really interesting little book. It's doing a lot. And I was there for the ride. Like I was just quite happy reading whatever she had to write. I would definitely pick up more by her. I thought her short stories were really good, and her essays were quite interesting as well. So yeah, this one I would recommend too. So I went to edit this video, finished editing it, and then went to look at the thumbnail, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't remember talking about that book, and then I realised I didn't, because it was the only book that I had read in an ebook version, so I didn't have the physical copy, and I just completely forgot to mention it. But the last book I read was The Premonition by Banana Yoshimoto. I got this as an ebook from my library app. This is like a very short sort of novella. I read Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto before, and I do remember enjoying it, but it was a very long time ago. So I was interested to see how I'd find some of her other work, and like honestly, I really liked her writing style, but I'm very confused at the fact that this book has like just recently been published in English. She wrote it in 1988, and the relationships in this book, like there are a couple of very strange relationships that are portrayed in a positive light that are just like not positive. Like I can't really say too much without ruining it, but there's one where it's like a female teacher and her student while he's still at school, and it's like they're meant to be in love, and it's told in a very like positive way, which is another very strange relationship that also seems like positive but very questionable. So it's very interesting that this has just recently been published in English. But there's something I really like about Banana Yoshimoto's writing style. She has a way of like picking really interesting bits out of a story, and like I could read her writing for ages, so I was almost annoyed that those like questionable relationships were in it, because it stopped me from fully loving this little novella. But it was really good. It's about this girl who's living with her family, and then she has a premonition about something. It comes back to her from her childhood, and it sort of changes her whole life. But yeah, like I would recommend, and I want to check out more of Banana Yoshimoto's work, because I do really like her writing style. But yeah, I like couldn't fully fall in love with this one either. So yes, a small update that I forgot to put in. So yeah, like no bad books this month. The one book I did DNF was another one that Dakota Warren had recommended, and I think I just had no idea what was going on in this book. So this is Art and Lies by Jeanette Winterson. So basically the blurb of this book says, in a near future London, Sappho, Picasso and Handel each set upon the same plan to flee the city by train. Finding themselves fellow passengers, the poet, the painter and the musician discover their fates drawn together by the curious agency of a book. I got none of that from this. So yes, it's split up into sections that are like Handel, Picasso, Sappho, but Picasso is a woman. Handel seems to be like a doctor, which I think he was a doctor as well. Sappho, I got nothing. Like I had no idea what was going on in her section. They didn't seem to have met on this train. They were just talking about random aspects of their life. It was near future London. It seemed like kind of Handmaid's Tale-y, post-apocalyptic going on. I was like, what am I reading, because obviously then it's not Handel, Picasso and Sappho, because they were all alive in such different times, that how can they all be together now in near future London? And I had no idea what was going on at all. And I was like, got to like over the halfway point, and I was just like, I don't even know what I'm reading anymore, so I'm just going to stop. I think the writing was beautiful in this. I think I just didn't have the concentration for it. So maybe this isn't a DNF forever. Like, if you've read this and enjoyed it, or just understood what was going on, please do let me know. But yeah, I was just like, no, this is not, like, I could finish this, but I still wouldn't have any idea what's going on, so what's the point? So I just stopped, and I'm glad I did. So yeah, those are the books that I read in August. I'd love to hear what great books you read in August. I'm really hoping that September is going to be a better reading month, and I feel really bad saying that, because like now, having gone through all of this, like I read some really great books. I just I think I'm back in the right headspace for reading. So I do think that I will get on better with the things I read in September, and set myself a really nice TBR with some things that I'm excited to get to. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you again soon.